I guess a quick review for anybody who wasn't here a few weeks back. I guess it was maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, we did a relationship talk, and many of you submitted your questions. Many of those we didn't get to, and then some people submitted like a couple more pages of questions. And so, anyway, we were told that we needed to do a part 2, so we decided to do that. And we are by no means relationship experts, and you may agree or disagree with some of the things we say. That's okay. We won't hurt our feelings if you disagree. But we've each had some experience, and we've each had a lot of friends who've had experiences, good and bad. And some of the questions, well, most all the questions that were submitted were really good ones, and so we kind of wanted to have an opportunity to answer them. And next month will be our 4-year anniversary, so we are still, so that's still relatively a short amount of time. We both spent most of our lives single, and just the latter little bit is married. So why don't we go ahead and jump into these questions? It's sort of late start tonight. We will do the best job at.
We're starting off light.
So this question: what should one do if the other is addicted to porn? And what if that relationship is not physical? Let's see. Why don't we? There's multiple questions.
Well, we start with some, we'll get the other two later.
I would say if you're in a relationship or contemplating a relationship with someone who has an addiction of any sort, that ought to be a red flag. Just because, and I'm not saying that people are perfect, and I certainly am not. And there's plenty of ish in my life. But if, but any sort of addiction is just sort of a red flag that there's something going on, and that there's something is controlling the person, and that's probably descriptive of many of us in this room, that something may be controlling your life. And that doesn't mean that you're a relationship wasteland, or that your hopes for having a relationship will never be. I'm not saying that. But if there is something like that, whether it's a substance, and porn is certainly a substance, just like alcohol or drugs or other things like that, if it's ruling your life, it's something that really ought to be under control before you bring someone else into your life. And Christy wanted to say something about that too. I will say too, girls, you have to realize also that we live in a very, very different age, very different from even when I was in college. The pornography is so easy to get to, and it is much more of a temptation for guys than you could ever possibly imagine. And it's a temptation for many girls, and that's probably a surprise to many guys. That your boyfriend or your significant other has never viewed porn is not going to be an option. It's probably just not reality. And a couple who actually I officiated their wedding, at one point in their college career, she asked him, "Have you ever viewed porn? Do you have any problem with porn?" He goes, "Well, a little bit." Now, I was discipling this guy, and he'd been very transparent with me, and his problems with it, I would say, compared to most other guys, were like at 5% or 10%. It was so minimal. I mean, even the fact that he was so open with her. And she's like, "Well, what did you look at?" Well, she shouldn't have asked. And honestly, he shouldn't have told her. And here's why: because if you're in a relationship, I just don't necessarily think that's appropriate, because it plants things in the girl's head that she can never compete with. Guys, you need to be vulnerable, and you need to be transparent with people, but that should be other guys, not your girlfriend. And there should be people in your life that know all about that. And I have friends in my life that we share all of our junk, and we don't hide things. And there's a lot of power in that, but your significant other shouldn't be that person. This girl was ready to break. She was ready to end it. She was going to break it off. They were close to being engaged. And I said, "Well, you can do that, but I think you'd be making a mistake." But I told him, if she does this, if she breaks up with you, this is what you'll have to live with, because you have participated in the things that so disgust her. So guys, you need to hear that too. It's really, really painful for girls. You want to add anything?
Yeah, the details of the porn don't need to be discussed in a relationship because it's fantasy, it's not reality, and you're setting the other person up for insecurity. It's something that can never be measured up to. So there's got to be a safe place and accountability with people of the same sex that are your friends and your accountable partners that are safe, not your significant.
And Christy knows, and actually we had a conversation recently that she can ask me, hey, how are you doing with stuff on the internet? Is it a problem? Do we need to talk? And she knows that I've asked her to ask me those things. But she wouldn't ask me details because there are people in my life, my best friend from college, that he and I can talk about those details. But it would really probably just send you down a bad trail.
Yeah, I don't want those thoughts in my head. I don't want those emotions in my head. So.
But yeah, gosh, you could do a whole talk on porn because it is, I think it's epidemic. I know it's epidemic, and the culture that you guys are growing up in will be affected by it in ways that I don't know. We don't fully know how it's going to affect culture. But it exists in ways that it didn't 20 years ago. And then weirdly, most of y'all were born while I was in college, but the internet didn't exist in the way it does now. You had to actually go buy porn, and now it's sent to you free all the time at 60 megabytes per second. So why don't we keep moving? You want to
I
answer?
think we'll get into the next ones.
Okay.
As
You want to get that second question?
disagreement.
Yeah.
How to handle a disagreement, communicate. I know it sounds silly. I tend to shut down and withdraw, which is not helpful or healthy. Chad is a great communicator. I have to work a little harder at it. And so for us to get to a disagreement, a couple things have to happen. One, the reality and my perspective has to be that we're on the same team. We might not be on the same side of the same argument, but he is not my enemy. He is my biggest fan, my biggest supporter. He is for me. So I need to remember that first of all. And then whatever disagreement, as long as we're on the same team, we can talk about things. He is a safe place. I have to remember that. And girls, me included, we get all insecure and emotional and all this stuff comes up. We're afraid to talk about things. What if it's the wrong thing? What's he gonna think? What's he gonna do? Well, some of that has to stop. We have to feel free to talk frankly and openly about things, but to communicate clearly. And for girls, for me, I know I have to communicate without my hormones involved. That really helps. And so there may be times that it's not appropriate for me to have a conversation. It might have to wait a day or two. It might have to wait till I'm not tired or angry or hungry or bored or lonely or emotional. The conversation does not have to happen at this minute to clear the air right now. Like, it's okay if we sit on it for a little bit until my hormones have evened out or my anger has subsided or I've eaten a sandwich. Or you go to bed if you're tired. And you
Or
wake up
I've
the
eaten.
next day.
I'm the hypoglycemic one, so
But you get what we're saying. There's time.
But yeah, that's really a really important thing to realize just in relationships in general. There's a time and a place to have certain conversations, and there's times and there are places that this is just not appropriate. And as soon as, like, when you're in a married relationship, as soon as one of the spouses walks in the door from work, that's probably not a good time to have a serious conversation. If you're wanting to have a conversation with your girlfriend and she's got a huge midterm the next morning and it's already like 11 p.m. and you're like, we need to talk about this now, that's not a good time. It's just not, I'm serious, it's just not going to go well. And you have to realize, okay, let's talk about this when we are a little more rested, when we're fed, when we can look at this straightly. And what Christy said, she's not my enemy. And isn't it so weird that sometimes in our selfishness and our self-centeredness, we can begin to see those that are closest to us as enemies, I think especially those that are closest to us as enemies, and those are the ones that we can attack sometimes.
I just had another thought about that. Can I add on? Yeah, this just popped in my mind, but I need to handle my disagreements with Chad. I don't need to go to my mom or my sister or my best friend, but, I don't need to go to every other girl in my life and throw him under the bus. That's not beneficial for him or for me. That paints their view of him, and it gives me something to hold on to that's bitter and angry. And so there are times where you need to seek wise counsel, but my disagreements with him are with him and need to be addressed appropriately.
When we were dating, there were certain things in my life that I would divulge to her very early on, and later in the dating, I was like, so what did you, and Christy considers her mom one of her best friends, if not her best friend. And her mom is really a great lady. I have huge respect for her, really like her. She's a great mother-in-law. And but I was like, hey, so what's your mom think about this? And Christy says, oh, I've never talked to her about this. Really? She said, no, I just didn't think it really concerned her, and I didn't want to, I didn't know what her reaction would be, so I didn't want to throw you under the bus. Now, I knew Christy had talked with other people in her life about this, just as a way to have some perspective. But because she was so close to her mom, she said, this is something that my mom this isn't mine to share. And she's too close. Does that make sense? That gave me huge respect for her. Even though I probably wouldn't have minded if she had talked with her mom. She's like, no, I'm not gonna, do you know what I mean by throw you under the bus? I'm not gonna destroy her opinion of you when you can't have anything to do with it, when you can't control it. For someone who's been hurt in the past, whether it's by an ex, family life, or other outside factor, how does one put that behind them to move on into a relationship with someone and risk being hurt again? It's a really good question because it sort of covers the bases. We've all been hurt, we've all got damage and baggage, and you're carrying into relationships. How do you put it behind you? Sometimes it just takes time, and sometimes depending on the offense and who did it and what it was, you might need counseling. You might need to talk to someone to help process it and deal with it in an appropriate way and not project past issues on a new relationship. Well, my family always treated me this way, so I expected you to treat me this way. Well, this person's not your family. They're not your ex. Someone new. And what were you saying about counseling earlier? That shouldn't be a stigma?
Oh, no, I think counseling should and probably has lost any stigma that it has had in the past. And I think it should be walked into freely and seen as a great help. And I think one word in this question sticks out, and that's risk. You have to be willing to risk. And you have to know that when you're entering into a relationship, the other person is not perfect. They will hurt you, they will disappoint you. But that's just reality. And if you shield yourself off thinking, I'm too afraid to be hurt again, well, then you're living in a coffin. Like you're just sealed off from everything. So if you're willing.
One of my close friends, his parents are still together. His dad is an alcoholic, and because his dad is still in the home, I think it's almost worse because his dad's had little to do with him for most of his life, but his dad's been present, if that makes sense. So he's been present in the home, but has had nothing to do with him. And I've known for years that it's having a massive impact on him, but he has ignored it and tried to pretend that it wasn't there. And now he's in a relationship with someone that he would probably would marry, and he would certainly like to, and he's finding it excruciating to give himself into this relationship because he very much wants people in his world, but he's terrified that they're going to shut him out. So he is constantly torn in this relationship, and he constantly finds himself finding ways of attacking her in his mind, even though she has not done anything. I don't know if it makes sense, but people are really, really complicated, and we put up really great defense mechanisms to keep ourselves from getting hurt, and we'll deny things, we'll ignore things, and we'll push people away, even before they've ever done anything. Yeah, sorry. For him, you know, he's working through it, but it's painful. If he had had some counseling, well, years ago, he was still in denial that anything was wrong. There's a title of a book called I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. And it actually describes a lot of people. And it's kind of like, please don't leave me, but don't get close. And it's kind of how, not actually schizophrenic, but how we can seem schizophrenic because we're so terrified. We desperately want people in our lives, but we're terrified that they might hurt us. I'm pretty sure y'all that counseling is offered free of charge to y'all on this campus. How many?
12 sessions.
12 sessions per semester. I will assume that there's good quality care here. But if you were to seek it outside of these doors, it'd be $100 an hour easy, if not more than that. So take advantage of that. And you be the judge if you think it's good care or not. It probably is not going to be, I'm sure it's not going to be Christian counseling, but hopefully they will still be good counselors. Okay. You want to answer that?
Yeah, this one kind of goes with another one. Let's see. When to fight for a relationship with religion. Essentially it comes down to you want to date somebody that you think you can marry. You don't know at the beginning if you can marry them, but you know at the beginning if you can't marry them.
Right.
If they're mean to your dog, or children, or they hate women, or they hate men. Like, you kind of get the idea. Like, you know, if they beat you, they don't like chocolate. I'm just kidding. There are certain red flags, you know, you can't stand your life. If they are like this, that, or the other, you know you can't marry them. Don't date them. But what you know a person, if you think that you can marry, if you think, based on what you know, that you could marry this person, you kind of get what I'm saying, in a very loose, general, there's no red flag sort of way. Then you date them. You're not dating just to have something to do. You're not dating to fill your calendar or to not be bored. You're dating because this is an interview process for somebody you could spend your life with. So when do you fight for it and when do you just cut bait? You fight for it when you still think you can marry that person, when your disagreements aren't things that would dissolve a marriage or be red flags that you wouldn't want to marry them. That's when you fight for it. You let go when it's like, okay, they're a great person and that's okay, but they're just not for me, and that's fine. Only one relationship, only one of your dating relationships, one of the marriage. So if you gotta break up with somebody, you gotta break up with them. That's fine. It's okay. Not every relationship is gonna be marriage, nor should it be. So when you realize, I can't marry this person and it's going to be so hard to break up, so I'm just going to kind of keep hoping they'll change, or I'll change, I'll come around. Yeah, you just gotta let it go.
You know, the Bible's, the Lord instructs us in the Word to not be unequally yoked with a non-believer. So for those of us in this room, which I think is most everybody that's a believer, we're instructed you should only marry another believer. To do otherwise is to be unequally yoked, and that term yoke is something that you put a yoke around two oxen, which is kind of this big harness thing that go around their necks, and two oxen are much more powerful than one, and so you put them together so they could plow a field or pull a cart of some sort. But if they're unequally yoked, things are going to go in circles. It's not going to go where it ought to. Does that make sense? So even that question, like when you meet someone and they're not a believer, but they're really hot, you know, and we've all been in that situation. Like, well, I wouldn't marry them, but they sure would be fun to date.
Fun to date.
I'm not joking about that. That's when you're like, no, I wouldn't marry them, so I can't date them. And you could joke about this too, some people, but they really think, oh, well, it's kind of evangelistic dating. Maybe they'll come to Christ if they see, you know, my relationship with the Lord as we date. That's not a good idea. It's a whole lot easier to pull someone down than it is to pull someone else up.
That's right.
So I wish that were more of a given than it is, but I don't know that that's a given. And I'll say this, I'll even go further. When you meet someone like, oh, they said they're a Christian, that doesn't necessarily give you the green light.
That's right.
You want to make sure. I love Lois.
A lot of people are Christians in America.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I grew up in North Carolina, so yeah, I'm a Christian, right? Aren't I? And I'm not kidding, because if you are desiring to walk with the Lord, which I really hope that all of y'all are, or you're in the process of developing that love for walking with Him, then you want your spouse to be more in love with the Lord than they are you.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
That's real.
Because life and marriage can be hard enough as it is, but you really need to be able to lean on your partner. And I need to know that Christy has the same viewpoint and view of the Lord that I do. I need to know that she's meeting with Him on her own, and that He's leading her as He's leading me. So your litmus test, your standard of who you meet, I want y'all to really raise your standards. Like, well, she said she's a Christian, or he said he's a Christian. Okay, do you see fruit in their life? Are they really growing? Do they challenge you? When you spend time with them, does it get you excited about your walk with the Lord? Or are you thinking, maybe I can get them to be more interested in the Lord? That's just not a great way to start out. And we can really quickly be blinded by loneliness, by despair, by, maybe God's not going to provide anything else. For years I said, and I still believe, I'd rather be single and a little bit lonely than married and a whole lot miserable. You know, I've done my share of marriage counseling with clients, and it's bad. If one of the spouses is a believer and the other one isn't, it can get a little bad. Okay. This one's a little bit lighter, I think. If someone's love language is touch, how does one show that without going too far? Okay, y'all know what love languages are?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's a book by a guy named Gary Chapman, and he describes the 5 love languages, and it's kind of become a norm or understanding that these are accurate. I think there's a lot of truth to it, but they are, the 5 would be words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service,
Quality time.
quality time, and gifts. Christy and I both think that we have all 5 of those love languages. Which 2 are you? All 5. I love any of them. Yes, it's true. So, if your love language is touch, well, there's at least 4 others. That's probably not the only one that really meets your needs. But I would say that you can love someone, and I mean, you can love someone with touch, and it doesn't have to be sensual. And y'all all know that. I mean, you can see guys during a football game, they're sharing a little love. That's a little love language, good game, right?
And touch really is a big one for me. So when Chad and I were dating, for girls, generally speaking, for girls, if touch is your love language, it's not sexual. It's, I want my hand to be held. I want a hug. I want my back to be rubbed. And so when we were dating, that was fine. He would hold my hand or like to lead me into a room with a small on my back. And I felt cared for and loved. Just with those 2 little touches, nothing sketchy about those. He could do that for my parents and it's fine. So that's kind of, I think you kind of keep the parents gauge in your head, you're pretty safe on everything. Like, how far is too far? What would you do in front of your parents? What do you want to see your parents do in front of you? I'm saying that's like right there. You go parents, or like, yeah.
And I mean, based off that, we sort of had that question last week, I think, or last time, I think we may get to it this time, but the question is, how far is too far physically? And this is what I tell guys all the time. What would you be comfortable with another male doing with your mom, your sister, or your daughter? What would you be comfortable knowing that another male was doing with your mother, your sister, or your daughter?
And in tangible terms, our preacher put it as like from the neck up and nothing horizontal. So yeah, just kind of.
And that might sound so bizarre to y'all, but if you think of it that, I mean, really, think of your guys, all of you in the room, think of your daughters one day. What do you comfortable with some young Yeah.
There's another question on this list about having high standards and what's okay. We all know that people aren't perfect and grace is deserved. But how do you expect to be treated? How do you expect someone to treat your sister or your mother or your daughter or your best friend? It's not okay for somebody to walk all over your best friend, so why would you let somebody walk all over you? It's not okay for somebody to treat your sister like crap. So why would you treat someone else poorly, or why would you let yourself be treated poorly? So yeah, keeping family, parents, sister, best friend, children as the litmus test, that's a pretty fair gauge for many things.
A guy asked me that one time, and I gave him that answer, and he said, "That's not fair." I said, "How's that not fair?" He said, "That's not fair." I'm like, "Oh, it's fair." It's fair. He really did want to hear that, and I think a lot of us really don't want to hear that. You want to do the next one?
Too close?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This had to prevent the too close thing with opposite sex. To stay friends, you gotta stay in the shallow end. Girls, you can't open up and gush about everything you're feeling, because you're gonna feel closer to the guy than you really are. And guys, you can't get your emotional needs met by friends that are girls. You can't open up and tell all the vulnerable things that you need advice on or sympathy for. You've got to go to guys for that. Or if you have a girlfriend, that's fine. But if she's a friend that's a girl, she will think that she is more than a friend if you go deep.
And if it's in a group context, that probably changes it a little bit. But if you're having one-on-one sessions with people, like with the opposite sex and gushing this deep stuff, the relationship, I think I did say this last time, but time equals commitment, and depth equals commitment to a lot of girls, and to some guys too. And so I think you just have to be cautious.
And especially if there's coffee or food included, and it's just the two of you, the girl's probably going to get a date, even if you haven't said that. You're thinking y'all are friends, and it's fine, and she's thinking, what are we? It's so exciting. When's our next date going to be? What am I going to wear?
We skipped that one, I guess. What was a conflict? Sorry, just as you flipped it, I realized, what was a conflict? Sorry. What was a conflict that you had that could easily been avoided? What was the solution?
We didn't go into it, talk about things that we talked about. We didn't have a specific answer for this. The conflicts that can be avoided for us come when we try to talk about things when we're tired or hungry, or we're too emotional, when I'm too emotional, things like that. So that's how we get through conflicts, is being aware of when the conversation is taking place to clear the air. But,
yeah. And just make sure you want to work towards the relationship being a really safe place. I remember a conflict early in our marriage. I don't remember what it was about, but it started in the car, and it was still going as we pulled up to a cookout at Christy's side of the family, and everybody was up on this deck, and we pulled the car up, and they're all looking down at us, waiting for us to get out of the car. I was like, let's just talk about this later. And Christy, I think, had some concern that we wouldn't be okay if this wasn't solved right now. I said, can we just talk about this later? And you really want to talk about it then. And we did get to talk about it later. And I think as our relationship there was more length to it. I think safety allowed you, the safety of the relationship allowed you to say, oh yeah, we can wait.
Yeah, safety in the relationship allows me to let go of the urgency of 30 year and just deal with it for, time needed.
Yeah, because for me, it was a really awkward position. All of your brothers, all four of them, are up on that deck looking down at us in the car, wondering why we're sitting in here not getting out. And I don't really want to talk about this right now, so that was just one of those times where it wasn't the best. Did we answer this one?
This was sort of along the lines of the high standards and the grace. No one's perfect, but how do you want somebody to treat your mom, your sister, your best friend?
Yeah, and the balance of grace and acknowledgement. We had something else I was going to say about that one, because I thought that was a really good one. People are going to make mistakes. And people are going to have issues, because we all have issues. And so when you go into a relationship that may last forever, you just really need to soberly think, in a sober way think, is this something I'm really willing to walk with them through for the rest of my life? It's very dangerous to go into a relationship thinking, I'll change him, I'll change her. Really good chance that won't happen. No matter how great you are, most times people are people, and people change, but most times people are who they are, and they're not going to change a lot. And so you have high standards. I had stuff that Christy was willing to buy into, and just say, yeah, I'm willing to walk through this. You have anything like that? Okay. How much money should a guy spend on a girl monthly while dating? Not more than you have.
And girls be okay with that. That's real life.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, a typical date night for us is cooking dinner and Redbox. Sometimes we order pizza from Papa John's like once a month. And Redbox.
Some of you,
And like breakfast for dinner and Redbox.
some of you may come from money, or some of you may have careers where you will have a lot of money one day, and that might be different for you. And you may end up, like when you're married, going on great dates all the time, and you go to different restaurants, and you spend a lot of money. And that's okay if you have those resources. The reality is a lot of people don't have those resources, even in marriage, when they're more stable financially. And so to have really high expectations when you're dating, I think, is maybe a little off also. Well, we talked about it this way. Most entertainment things are very expensive. What I say, like concerts, movies, shows that you go to, you know what I'm saying? They're more, we both like movies, we rarely go because it's so expensive. If we go to a movie, it's going to cost us $30, which that $30 can go towards something, a lot of other things in our household, probably diapers right now. Well, I was going to say, it's not difficult to be creative with dating and do things that are on the cheap but just fun, whether you cook dinner for her or him and have them over, or you do rent a movie, whether you go to a park, go to a free concert in the park. Different cities have more culture than others, but often, well shoot, right after we got married even, we lived in Raleigh, and the museum in Raleigh during the summer had movies on their lawn. They showed on the side of the museum every Friday night, and they were usually pretty good ones. It was a ton of fun. You take blankets or chairs out and a picnic, and we did that at least once or twice. It was a lot of fun, and it's free.
I think girls are wooed by creative dates that have effort put into them. You go to the planetarium, you go to the airport aviation overlook park with
Which
a
is
picnic.
really fun. If you haven't done that, by the way, Charlotte Douglas has a really cool
it's
observation
awesome.
area. I'm not kidding.
So planetarium, aviation, aquarium, a picnic, you could do a theme picnic, all desserts. What girl is not going to go crazy over a dessert picnic? You poured into desserts? Yes, I'm in, I'm sold. Or what if you did like a Frozen date night where you watch the movie Frozen and you get ice cream? You know, like you go theme. You go for a walk.
You start with a frozen dinner. Yeah, I got
You cook her spaghetti with the Italian job. There are things, you fix breakfast dinner and do breakfast club. I mean, you can do theme, you can go for a walk. A girl's gonna be impressed by the thought and the effort. And if she only wants the money end of it, that you cut bait there. That's not okay.
Yes.
Our first date was pretty inexpensive because we went and had pizza at a great local pizza place that was really, really good and really fun, had all this atmosphere, and when you're just sharing a pizza, they're not that expensive. And then we had I gave her an option of dessert. You know tell them what it was?
Yeah, he said for dessert, there's 3 choices. 1, we can go to the Cheesecake Factory and split this cheesecake.
You're splitting a piece of cheesecake, so I didn't want it to be that expensive.
2, I brought all the ingredients we need to make white chocolate covered candied caramel apples rolled in brown sugar and cinnamon. Like you get at Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. Or 3, we can do both. I didn't want or need both desserts, but I didn't want the date to end. So I was like, yes, let's go get cheesecake and make these chocolate. So we did. And that's, you share pizza and there were leftovers, so I had them for breakfast the next day. And
We shared cheesecake, which was really fun.
which is fun. And then he bought apples and
We made all this
White chocolate.
stuff, and it was really fun.
our
So-
second date, he brought the ingredients to make chicken pot pie. Like, cost effective, but what girl isn't wooed by a guy who brings everything needed for a hostess meal?
And all of y'all aren't like that. If some of you, I just spend money differently than some. Some of y'all might have more money to spend, and if you do, that's okay. But I think the way we started out that way, it established that we could have fun without having to spend a lot of money.
And if you want to impress her, there's always Groupon or Living Social.
Respect for your
Oh my God, Groupon is amazing. Seriously. So, okay.
What is your definition of love, and how do you show it? I would say that love is a feeling. It is an emotion, but that is not enough to sustain a relationship over a lifetime. It's just not. And Disney, we just watched Frozen last week, and a lot of the Disney movies, which I loved it. It was great. Yeah, it's great. And a lot of Disney movies are great. But I think that they give us an inaccurate view of what marriage is like, what relationships should be like. I saw her. She was everything I ever wanted. We got married, moved into the castle, and we had our own kingdom. It was great.
It was rainbows and butterflies and bliss.
And that's, as much as we would like it to be that, it's not quite that way. So I would say that more than anything else, love is a decision and it's a choice. Look at the biblical definition of love, where God chooses us, He pursues us. Christ did the ultimate sacrifice out of love. It was a choice. Going to the cross was not something that was fun. He sweated blood right before dying on the cross. He asked the Lord, he said, if it be your will, take this cup from me. I would really like to not get up on that cross if I don't have to. But out of love, out of a decision and a choice, he gave himself for us. It was very sacrificial. He was thinking of us, not him. We had everything to gain. He had nothing to gain. He doesn't need us. That is the definition of love, is thinking of the object of your love higher than yourself. I think. And emotions do come, feelings do come, but I think that those should be the after effects of the decision. And so when you're looking for a partner, you want to look for someone who has qualities that you think you could continue choosing to love for the rest of your life. And there is feeling, there is emotion, and we really do love and enjoy being around each other. But especially in this season, when we don't get much sleep, and we're waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning because someone's screaming at us over the monitor, you really want someone who's easy to live with and easy to choose to love. Just in case I run out of time later, 1 Peter 4:8 says, the end of, 4:7 and 8, the end of all things is near, therefore be clear-minded and self-controlled so that you can pray. In verse 8, above all, love each other deeply because love covers over a multitude of sins. The context of this, love each other deeply, it doesn't say, feel love towards each other a whole lot. It's love, it's a doing word. It's an action word. Choose to love them. And not in a shallow way, but in a deep way. Why? Because love will cover over the sins. It doesn't mean that I'm without sin, because I certainly am not. I'm full of sin. But as Christy loves me, the love covers over it. If that makes sense, and vice versa.
And I know a passage I'm sure you've all read and heard 1,000 times. It's the love passage about love is patient and kind. That's a really tangible action. Yeah, but like those are the actions. That's what love looks like. Love is patient and love is kind. It doesn't keep record of wrongs, and that's really hard.
Yeah.
So if the butterfly mushy gushy feelings aren't there, then what does love look like? Well, it looks like I'm going to choose to be patient, and I'm going to choose to be kind, even though I feel like that sometimes. But it's making the choices that put Chad first, making the choices to put somebody else first, even when you don't feel like it. When I just want him to put me first, darn it. What about? Well, it's making the effort to put myself after him and be patient and kind. I'm not self-seeking and not rude and not easily angry.
You guys are in a great season right now because you're single and you have the opportunity to practice loving your friends, your classmates, and your family. And you have a chance to practice doing that. And often God gives you practice, extra practice in loving people that are frankly difficult to love. Roommates that leave dishes out, that don't clean up themselves, assigned group members from a class who do not pull their weight. Probably get an amen there from a lot of y'all, especially the engineering folks. But it's an opportunity to practice loving someone even when they may not deserve it, which is exactly what Christ did. We do not deserve the love He gives us. If we will continue to revisit God's Word and you stay in it and you revisit and keep looking at what His love towards us looks like and how He tells us we should love others as He has loved us. Wow, that's really convicting and really hard to do. But it is, I think, the accurate picture. For a relationship that is or has been physical, how would the couple bring that back into the boundaries it should be? It is very difficult, if not impossible, to do that. I have seen it done. A fraternity guy discipled at Carolina is now married to a girl that he was in a physical relationship with when they were in college. They're a very godly couple. They live here in Charlotte. We're great friends with them. When they were dating before one or maybe even both of them were walking with the Lord. One of them came to Christ, and then sometime later the other one came to Christ, and they determined, God convicted them that their physical relationship wasn't honoring to each other or to Him, and they began trying to back out of it, and it was really hard. They did it, and they survived, and I was out of the country and wasn't able to attend their wedding, but when I came back, they were showing me all the pictures from their weddings and everything, and I just stopped and I looked at them. I said, do y'all realize how unique it is that your relationship has survived? And they just very somberly said, yeah, we know. Because it started out on a really bad foot. At the point, this is my own belief here, I can't really document this, but at the point that a relationship goes physical, I believe the emotional intimacy stops there. I don't believe it'll go much deeper than wherever you are when you go physical. You know how when you make a new friend, or even a friend, but especially a significant other, and how exciting it can be to learn about that other person, and you're going deeper and deeper, and you find out who they are, and what, you know what I'm talking about? The joy and the fun it is of going deeper in a relationship emotionally. When the relationship turns physical, suddenly there's a short circuit. And that becomes a whole lot more appealing than talking. It just is. It just is, and there's often guilt from one or the other one, even if you're both enjoying it. And there can be guilt of, I think it can cause you to withdraw and shut down and not be as open with the other one emotionally. Does that make sense? Sex is a short circuit. It is great, it is wonderful, it is from God, it is not bad in its proper context. An analogy has been used, it's not my own, but the analogy is fire. Fire is great. It can be used for a lot of things, for heat, warmth, protection, for cooking. You can do all sorts of things with it, and it's wonderful in its proper context, in the fireplace. But the moment that you move that flame from the fireplace, the safe confines of the tile and brick onto the carpet, that's when it destroys the house. So the fire is not evil or bad. It never was. Is it contained in its proper context? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And some Christians go wrong there thinking sex is dirty and naughty and bad. It's not. It is a great gift from God. Intended. There's a book that one day when you get married you might read as you're engaged called Intended for Pleasure. That God intended our spouses to be for our pleasure. But it's our spouses. It's in that proper context. And when we take that fire out of the fireplace too soon, you'll get burned in some way. It just happens. And I wish I could say that you could escape it, but you won't, because no one ever does. Gosh, that's heavy. But I'm sort of reminded of our pastor a few weeks back who gave really heavy truth, and he did it because he loved the congregation. We just feel like, wow, he really cares. Chris and I were thinking he really cares, because he's saying some really hard things, but they're right things. And that's kind of how I feel telling you all these things. So I do really care for y'all, and I care for your future relationships and your current ones. Men, for the girls you're dating or want to date, until a ring is on her finger, and you walk down the aisle, she's someone else's wife. And I say that to the men because it's almost always the men who will initiate. And girls, I'll say this, if you're not married to him, it's sort of like being a free prostitute. Because he's made no commitments to you. He just hasn't. And it's hard to hear, it's hard to talk about, but he hasn't. And so he's getting stuff for free. And our culture's a big fat liar. A big fat liar, because our culture will tell you you can get away with this stuff. You walk out these doors, you won't hear any of this. The culture outside this room, for the most part, tells you do whatever you want. Because it's fun, you're young, and you'll get away with it. I want to say for those in the room who have already pulled the fire out of the fireplace and been burned, it's okay. There's redemption. God redeems. He cleans me up. He cleans Christy up. And I don't want you to feel like all is lost. Even for this couple I told you about earlier, they cut off their physical relationship once they realized this really isn't honoring to us, to each other, or to the Lord. And the Lord, He chose to redeem that relationship, and it lasted, and it still lasted. And actually, they had a great marriage. We love, when we get a chance to be around, we love being around them. So for those of us in the room who have screwed up, you're not alone, and there can be healing. I don't want you to feel beat up by this truth. The truth is still the truth, but don't be beat up by it, okay? Is that, y'all get that? I'm not saying you're less than, or you're dirty, or you're naughty, or that you're not worthy of a relationship one day. I'm not saying that. But you can start over today. And it will make for health in the relationship. Are we on we'll go for a little bit longer.
There's slide and one more slide.
Okay, we might not get through both of them, but we'll. Yeah, we kind of addressed that one, I think. Once a couple breaks up, you think it would be wise for them to try to date again further down the road. Depends on what you broke up for. If there was a misunderstanding, if there was something that one or the other of you was unwilling to live with, and then there's been some change, then maybe. I don't think it's and sometimes couples break up and they realize, I wasn't treating the other one very well. I think I could do this better. Or I wasn't looking at this straight on. I think I could do this better. Yeah, do you have anything to say to that? Now, the third one we've kind of already addressed too. That was someone healed from the wounds they're left from a past relationship. Time, dealing with it before the Lord. If there's wounds, especially we're talking about sexual wounds. If there's wounds, which we often carry, where we screwed up sexually, and it's really hard in this culture to escape that. And I'll say that too. If you are someone who saved yourself, and then you're in a relationship, you get in a relationship, and the other person says, "Well, I'm not a virgin," I don't think that disqualifies them as a potential partner. Talk with them. Find out where they are with it today, and what their thoughts are on it today. Does that make sense? There is not a perfect person out there. And just because someone has made mistakes, that doesn't mean they haven't learned from them. One of my close friends, the relationship just broke up this week, but the girl he was dating had been a prostitute at one point. And I'm really, really sad that they broke up, because I would love, if they got married, I would really want him to be in the wedding. She was a prostitute, and I really hope he would marry her, because she's fantastic. I mean, and I texted her today, and I said, "You still are one of the most amazing people I know. I hope you won't shun me," is what I told her, because she's not dating my friend anymore. So do y'all get my gist? God can clean up, and He does. And with her, the Lord has cleaned this woman up to the point where I just think she's fantastic, and she will make a great mother and a great wife. And it's because of her past, because this woman is really aware of who she is, who she was. She's really aware of who she was, and she's even more aware of who she is now, and that's what makes her fantastic. So don't let someone's mistakes be automatic disqualifiers. We already answered that one, haven't we? No. So maybe do one more, and we'll see. Oh, this is sort of softball pitch right here, isn't it? I thought she was even better looking than her pictures. That's what I thought.
Probably not. And we drove the same car.
Yeah, we had the same car, which was really funny. Almost the same color. That was weird. That's your car? Parked beside each other's parking lot. Weird. What godly traits do you look for in a wife? I love that she loved the Lord more than me. I loved that her relationship with the Lord gave her great confidence. I loved, I rattled off a whole bunch of these earlier. I'm in the hot seat right now. What are the traits what did I look for? She was gentle, and she was humble. This might sound small, but she had no debt, which meant that she was content with the things that God had given her, and she hadn't tried to take more than He'd given her, by assuming what it did. And actually, we talked about that on our second date, and we're like, oh, we later figured out, like, that really made a big difference to both of us. Like, I like you so much more, what's up, Alan? You know, and, yeah. Well, and because I know people who've married a spouse with thousands of dollars of debt, and it makes it hard, and they have to struggle. What else did I like? Lots of things. It's getting late. How do you fight the sexual desires all humans feel? That word, you just fight it. You fight it, you have people help you, you have your buddies, you have your girlfriends help you, and it's just a fight, and it just really is. And it's not easy. What's the best way for you, your partner to, I guess you and your partner to face those together? I think you talk about it, and you be open, and say, you know, when you wear this, I love it, but you can't wear that anymore.
And you're on the same page, and you have tangible boundaries. It's not this, yeah, that's a great in theory, we won't do that. I think you have to have specific boundaries and tangible guidelines.
All right, we're real quickly ending here. What do you do if you're unsure if your crush likes you back? Christy said for the girl,
If you're a girl, you wait. You don't seek it out. And if you're,
you make yourself available, make sure he knows that you're interested.
yeah, you don't stand on the sidelines and turn into the corner. You show the appropriate gestures, but it's not yours to bring up. So, I like you, do you like me?
And if you're a guy, you take initiative. You ask her out.
On a date. On a date.
Yeah.
You wanna go on a date and get lunch?
Yeah.
Wanna go to lunch date? Wanna go to coffee date?
Yeah. You do long distance. Did do long distance. We did. It was hard, but it was all right. We did it for. Well, it wasn't a long time, but we did it. It was about 2 hour distance.
Watching the phone, text messages, and then saw each other on weekends.
All right. I know it's time to end. So thanks for y'all's attention. I hope it's been helpful. And were you going to say something? Yeah. I'll pray and we'll get you out of here. Lord, I pray that you would help myself and my friends in the room to really understand love by your definition of what your word says, because it really does give us a good and clear and accurate picture of what love ought to be. Lord, I pray that after our talk tonight there wouldn't be shame or guilt. I pray that people wouldn't feel beat up, but would they feel hope? Or that you are a redeeming God who can clean us and change us. And Lord, I pray for my friends in this room who yearn for relationships. Would you prepare them? Would you give them practice for the relationships that they'll have one day? And would you guide them? I pray this in Christ's name. Amen. Thanks, y'all.